You ever wonder if one small idea could actually change the world? I mean, for real, not in some vague, feel-good way, but in a way you could actually track and measure all across the globe. Well, today we're going to dive into the incredible story of how a simple idea cooked up in a junior high classroom started a full-blown revolution of kindness that absolutely nobody saw coming. That quote, it comes from a guy named Chris Chandler. He was a pretty cynical investigative reporter, the kind who thinks he's seen it all. But then he stumbled onto a story so big, so transformative, it just completely shattered his worldview. He found himself chasing this grassroots movement that was literally reducing crime, spreading goodwill, and the source of it all? Well, it was the last place on Earth he ever would have looked. And here's the crazy part. This whole thing didn't start in some high-tech think tank or with a billionaire's foundation. Nope. It all started with an extra credit assignment. So how in the world did a simple classroom project snowball into a global phenomenon? Let's trace it all the way back to the very beginning. Our story starts not with some big bang, but in the quiet, awkward silence of a classroom in Atascadero, California. And it really all comes down to two people. A new teacher carrying some very visible scars from his past, and one student who just wasn't afraid to look right at them. So you got to picture this teacher, Reuben St. Clair. He's a veteran, and he's got these severe facial injuries from his time in Vietnam, all covered up with an eye patch and skin grafts. He walks in expecting to have to fight for control of the class, but instead, he just gets hit with this wall of silence. The kids are too afraid or maybe just too awkward to even look at him. But then one boy, Trevor McKinney, he breaks that spell. He just looks Reuben right in the eye and asks, plain and simple, what happened to your face? He saw the person, not just the scars. And this was the challenge Reuben wrote up on the blackboard. It was an assignment he'd given 100 times before. Just to get the kids thinking. It never really led to anything huge. But this time, in the hands of this particular boy, it was going to plant a seed that would change, well, pretty much everything. Now, Trevor McKinney didn't just come up with some vague idea about, being nice to people. No, he created a system, a real, structured, repeatable plan with a very specific set of rules. And this is where it goes from just a kind thought to a genuine engine for social change. Okay, so what makes this so revolutionary isn't just the generosity part. It's the structure. The whole idea of pay it forward completely breaks the normal cycle of favors. Usually, when someone helps you, you feel like you owe them. But with this, your debt isn't to the past, it's to the future. You have to help 3 new people. And that's what turns a single good deed into this unstoppable chain reaction. And here's exactly how it works. The rules are designed for maximum impact. First, it has to be a big favor. Not just holding a door open, but something really significant, something they couldn't do for themselves. Second, you gotta help 3 different people. And here's the genius part. The third rule, they are absolutely forbidden from paying you back. Instead, they're on the hook to pay that massive favor forward to 3 new people. It's just this beautiful, self-replicating model for compassion. And this is where it gets absolutely wild. Trevor, this 12-year-old kid, he gets out his calculator and he does the math. One person helps 3, who each help 3, and so on. By the time you get down to the 16th level, you've got over 43 million people involved. He figured out that just a few more levels down the line, the number would be bigger than the entire population of the planet. He saw the potential for his idea to go viral, long before we even used that word. Of course, a great idea is just an idea until you actually do something. And Trevor didn't just talk about it, he immediately started his project. And his first few tries really show you just how messy and hard and beautiful this idea was when it hit the real world. So his first attempts were a mixed bag. He tries to help a homeless man named Jerry get back on his feet, but Jerry just ends up back in jail. Total failure, right? Then he tries to play matchmaker and set up his teacher with his mom, only to get a lesson that, you can't just orchestrate love. But with his third person, Mrs. Greenberg, a lonely widow, his simple act of kindness, that one takes root and starts to grow in a way no one could have predicted. But even in what looked like a total failure with Jerry, there was this little glimmer of hope. Jerry writes a letter to Trevor, and in it, he takes responsibility for his life. Trevor didn't just give him money, he gave him a moment where someone actually believed in him. It didn't work out like he planned, but that human connection, that mattered. But Mrs. Greenberg's reaction, that shows the idea's true power. She says this amazing thing, miracles can and do have middlemen. She saw Trevor as an agent of something bigger. His simple act of tending her garden inspired her so much that she decided to pay it forward in her will, leaving her life savings to 3 people who really needed it. And that set off whole new chains of kindness that would, eventually, lead right back to our reporter. And that brings us right back to Chris Chandler. Months have gone by, and he starts noticing things that just don't add up. Good things, impossible things. And his reporter's gut is telling him there's a huge story here, a pattern that he just can't explain. For Chris, the first clue was a set of numbers that just seemed impossible. A cop he knows tells him that gang-related deaths in the city have suddenly dropped from dozens a month to 1 to 0. It's not a fluke, it's a phenomenon. And people keep talking about a movement, and this phrase, pay it forward. Chris knew he was onto something huge. So Chris starts digging, right? He starts tracing this thing backwards. It takes him from a gang member in LA to a convict who tries to take all the credit to a letter that points him to this small town. And there, he finds the people who got money from Mrs. Greenberg's will. And piece by piece, he follows this incredible chain of kindness all the way back to its unbelievable source, a 12-year-old boy named Trevor McKinney. So after Chris Chandler's story breaks, Trevor becomes a national hero overnight. He's celebrated everywhere, he's doing interviews, he's even invited to meet the president. But then the story takes a tragic and ultimately catalytic turn. On the very same day that he meets the president, Trevor sees someone getting attacked. And being who he is, he does what he believes in. He intervenes, he tries to help. And in that one final act of paying it forward, he's killed. In the face of this just senseless tragedy, it's his teacher, Reuben St, Clair, who somehow finds the words to explain Trevor's spirit. At a memorial service that's broadcast to millions, he explains that Trevor's real power came from his innocence, his absolute refusal to believe that the world couldn't be made better. You see, Trevor's death didn't end the movement, it immortalized it. Tens of thousands of people inspired by his story traveled from all over the world for his candlelight vigil. From London, from Sweden, from Bangladesh. His idea wasn't just a school project anymore. It was his legacy, a living, breathing testament to his faith in people. Reuben St. Clair ended his speech that day with a challenge to the millions watching, and it's the same challenge we're left with today. Trevor's idea proved that changing the world doesn't take some grand plan or immense power. It proves the biggest changes can start with the most ordinary things, with just one person and with the world you've already got. So the only question left is, what are you going to do with it?